Today I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, which is art therapy, and why it is so effective for children and for adolescents. Art therapy can be conducted with all ages, from 3 years old to 100, but I'm going to focus on children and adolescents. So number one, creative activity. And when I say art therapy and art making, I'm basically referring to any kind of a creative act, whether it is drawing or whether it's just engaging with art materials, creating a three-dimensional form and so on and so forth. So that the creative activity can tap into that part of your brain which is not accessible to words. To explain it simply, think of the brain as having two parts. One is your thinking brain and the other is your emotional brain. So when we use words, we are essentially using our thinking brain and not so much our emotional brain. But what art making does is it taps into the emotional brain. It surpasses that verbal brain. So what is essentially happening is that the information, the sensory information, the emotional information that resides in your emotional brain can be accessed through the art making, and it comes out in a tangible form as the art product. So, with children especially who may not be aware, or even with adolescents, when I say children, I mean adolescents as well, so who are not necessarily aware of, let's say, why they're feeling stressed or why they're feeling depressed or low, or having certain urges or behaving in certain ways. They don't have to use their words. They only need to draw or create something, right? So that's the number one reason. Number two, there are children who are resistant to go for therapy. And usually art making, it comes across as a fun activity, as something unusual, and you're not forced to verbalize. So you create something, and if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it, although one does reflect on the art product once it's made. But then you have the nonverbal clients who don't have the ability of language, to use language, and so there is not the necessity of that. Number three, so the art product itself, it creates a distance between the actual problem and the person who is going through that problem. And of course, the therapist then creates a safe space to reflect on that product or reflect on that artwork, and it becomes easier to talk about the issue. Then art therapists have access to a wide variety of art materials which have different emotive qualities. Again, to explain that simply, so let's take paint and let's take crayons. So paint is a material that taps into deep emotions and is very freeing and can create, hyper arousal in a person, whereas a crayon or a marker or a pencil is a more restrictive material, and you can, repeatedly doodle with it, or you have more control over it. So people who are anxious will tend to be attracted more towards the pencil or a marker, for instance. So then having that availability of the materials within a session also gives different options to the child to go where they are ready to go. And lastly, but not least, like I said, it's fun, so when a child comes into the session, they feel that they are not being forced to go somewhere that they're not ready to go, and the art material kind of slowly, and the art making can slowly draw even the most resistant child into sharing with the therapist. So that's it for now. I have a lot more to say about art therapy, but we'll do so in the next few sessions.